Ridiculous. Always Josh in so fast. Thank you, Josh. As always, credits for the music. I use so much of Adrian Von Ziegler's background audio music. He is all over YouTube. License free. Just give him credit. Say thank you. A great guy. Love all of his stuff. Oh, Amanda, I'm so surprised you're in tonight. You might know one of our participants tonight on the stream. So yeah, you know Tim, of course, and me and Evelyn. There's one more. I forget what he's. I think his name's Mike, something like that. It's going to be a quick, fun show tonight. Just a quick 1 hour. Oh, thank you, Pat, for the sub. Kicking it off right. Man, you're in our thoughts. I got a couple other folks I want to mention in a moment that are in our thoughts tonight. Hey, Caesar, good to see you. Thank you for the sub, Caesar. Well, they can't see that, Tim, but what are you showing me right now?
No, this is just for you. This is all my extracts of the commercials for the...
Okay. All right, well, let's jump to that because we're about 5 minutes from show launch, but we got a little bit of time. Let's kick off Duncan Joustley. So fun. Stand by. The cromulent, semi-pro jousting expert.
To all ye present, greetings. I am none other than Duncan Joustley the Cromulent, the preeminent herald and town crier of Altamira. If my highly successful career on the semi-professional jousting circuit has taught me anything, it is always to remain ever vigilant for opportunity. And it is this sort of opportunity that I am offering you. And that is the chance to have your business, your organization, your town, your church, your community announced boldly, loudly, with verve and vigor.
Verve is always accompanied by vigor. Truly,
at the Altamira Grand Melee main event. I have a great deal of experience speaking loudly and telling people what to do. Harness my boots. There is a fee schedule for such services that I provide. And it is available at the Altamira Tourist Board in a handy brochure. This has been Duncan Joustley.
So well done.
Don't miss out on the finer things.
So well done. Everyone loves that. Although Taryn wants to know what you were drinking when you recorded that.
I answered.
Oh, would you say I missed it? Apple juice. Yeah, I doubt that. All right. And Ferox Fabrications, one of our other great sponsors. We love Darren. Ferox, Mike Disney, and Mantic Games at the top of my I love you list right now for my sponsors. Hello, Enoch.
I'm feeling very Lady Hawk with the music.
You should be. Lady Hawk, Beastmaster, all of those great 80s Sword and Sandals movies. Yes, Taryn, Enoch serves us coffee every morning. And then I want to also just quickly shout out our friends again over at Mantic Games. Let me switch back here. So there are, I should have tested this earlier. There are 4 of us. I think this one's right. There we go. Boom. Yeah, good. All right, we got it. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And I'm going to pull... No, it's not your fault, Mike. I'll fix that. You relax, man. Let me get that right. That's on my end, not your end. So I'm gonna move this cam this way just a bit more. Everybody's got different video sets, and now we got it. All right, I am joined tonight, as always, by Evelyn. You know her as Theater Evie, as Ilandra, as Moria. She plays so many different characters on our streams here at Blue Box. Always wonderful. I'm joined also tonight by the ever mysterious Tim. He is the player killer. He is responsible for every PC death that has occurred here on Blue Box. It is not he who wields the sword. It is the sword who is at fault for all of this. No,
it is a poor craftsman who blames his tools.
Exactly. And I am joined tonight by Mike. Mike Lubach, thank you so much for being with us tonight. His first time on stream, and we're excited to have him with us. He is, of course, the other half of Mystical Unicorn, Manda, who is super active, always in our chat, and has sent so many things here to help us at Blue Box. I'm excited to be with these 3 great DMs. And we're doing a Q&A tonight, so it's going to be a fun chat. We really want to engage the community tonight. So we want you to ask us questions about how to DM, styles, additions, techniques, what you make aware to your players, what you hide from your players. Do you use pre-designed modules, or do you do all homebrew, or some mix of those two? We also want to mention that we are forestalling what was originally scheduled tonight, which was our Gen Z and that's going to be happening next Wednesday. I am so excited. So be with us for our session 1 week from tonight. We're going to be joined by a new member of the Blue Box community, Cameron, and some other sort of like 20 to 24, 25-year-olds that hit that Gen Z mix. And really talking to them about D&D and how they get excited about it and to join in the community, and understanding 5e and what that brings and D&D Beyond, but also the other elements of D&D that go into editions and history and lore and so much that's in the annals of D&D history. So with that as the backdrop, I want to start off tonight and let each of our participants introduce themselves. And we're going to start off with you tonight, Tim. When's the next Barbarian episode? Who have you killed with those weapons on your wall? Anything else you'd like us to know that will not get you arrested?
I have not killed anyone. And nor have any of them. The weapons were never used in a homicide. So...
is that a self-defense claim?
What was the other question?
When's your next Barbarian stream?
The next Barbarian, oh yes, yeah. October 2nd, Saturday morning, will be the Dark Hand in a little thing that I call between a rock and a hard place. And rock is spelled R-O-C.
I like that. All right. Let's go.
And also, I made a comment about it being really tough and them possibly dying. And Jay said, I'll believe it when I see it. So now I'm committed to really upping it to make sure that it is brutal.
Yeah. No.
So
I like that. I felt it was a little bit of a cream puff walk last time I played with you, Tim. Not tough enough at all. Yes, I'm dangling my throat out there on a limb, waiting for you to cut it.
Well, I mean, things are what they are, and players can. You could have made it very bad.
So you're saying I was a great player? What you're saying?
I don't like to ramrod. I don't like to ramrod things and automatically make it a certain way. I want the players to have enough rope to hang themselves. So if you do a good job, and this is reality, if you do a good job, it's an easy walk.
Yeah.
If you do a bad job, you end up barely making it out of intensive care. So,
No, I like that.
All one or the other. It's not.
I like that. So really, that's we all joke as DMs about killing PCs and the danger of the games, but none of us are really, if we're a decent DM in that game, we like to play the game and encourage them, but the risk and also just allowing the players to take their PC in a direction that is potentially dangerous or potentially heroic. This idea that they can do either one is fun. So the Gen Z question came up in chat. The technical, and I've done quite a bit of research on this, so if I'm wrong, I'm sorry, but I'm not just coming from total ignorance. 1997 is considered the entrant into being Gen Z. If you were old enough to remember 9/11, and that's kind of how they base these generational barriers. So anyone that was old enough in 2001 to perhaps remember the news as they watched the Twin Towers fall, that was the beginning of what's called Gen Z. 97 to, I believe, 2012 is the age range for birth. So that means if you're 24, that kind of 24, 25-year-old range right now, you're Gen Z. Often confused with millennial. Millennials are on the upper range now, getting into their 40s. So many people call millennials, which are not. They are Gen Z.
So you mean the low end or the oldest end of Gen Z is remembering 9/11?
No. The youngest end of Gen Z is remembering 9/11. Born in 97.
That would be the oldest end.
That means they're old now.
No, 2012. No, so 9/11 was 2001.
Right. The youngest would not remember, but the eldest might, because they would have been about 4.
Yeah, okay, yeah, right, yes. That's what I meant. Exactly. Yes, you guys know it.
Earliest, I said youngest. I mean the oldest, not the earliest.
Right, exactly. So I think that's
oldest is earliest.
Yeah, so it's 2001. If you were old enough to remember 9/11 2001, you're at the oldest range of the Gen Z group. The youngest of them would have been born in 2012, and anything beyond that moves into their different nomenclature for that. But we're getting way off track here. Yeah, no, John is old, Enoch. I've never claimed I wasn't. I don't know why we had to go there already.
Get off my lawn.
Oh, Amanda, you're killing me tonight. Okay, this is Roast the DM night. I love it. I am Gen X. I am squarely Gen X. Don't call me boomer. I am not. I am proudly born in 1971. My first computer was a Radio Shack TRS-80. I was born weaned on technology. I am joined tonight, as always, by Evelyn, who is squarely millennial. And then I am joined tonight by Mike, who I don't know when he was born, but I'm guessing he might share my Gen X heritage. Mike, tell us about you.
I was actually born in 74.
Yep, you're right there, Gen Xer.
So young.
Started playing D&D with second edition when it first dropped. My original DM played Chainmail when it was 8.5, 11 sheets of paper folded in half and stapled together.
I just gave away a chainmail reprint, and I think I still have one here somewhere. Might have carried it off. I'll find it before the stream's over, but yeah, so that's so much fun. So we are joined by some really fun folks tonight, and this is all Q&A. So Evelyn, as you are always so good at doing, keep track of any questions. But what I'd like to prompt the audience with is anything at all with how you prep as a DM, additions, custom rule sets. We all have custom rules, or most of us do. Pacing, combat, roleplay, style, number of players that you like in your game, anything at all. We want to touch on those topics with this panel, and we're going to start off. Yeah, exactly, Fraley. Thank you so much. I don't think of myself as old, though. I guess maybe I should, but I don't. So let me start with you, Mike. Tell us a little bit more, Thank you. Hey, John, welcome. Speaking of our Gen Z guys, Demon Goon John Fuller, he is the wizard of Tailspire, along with Istalri, Charles, and they are friends of our show. So welcome here. Make sure you follow their Patreons and check them out. Always releasing new slabs and new boards. Great content. I get so many questions about Tailspire. It's not even funny. People just love that tool. I'm not so. We'll see. All right. So back to you, Mike. You started with Chainmail in 1984. Tell me about your gaming background, because you're the newest member of our panel here today in terms of participation on Blue Box. How did you get really immersed in the game? How much have you played through the years? And do you and Manda play? Have you extended it to your friends? Just tell me all about your gaming background.
I've actually played every edition since first. My first DM ran a hybrid of first and second edition. I've run every edition since second. I'm currently actually running a game Manda is in.
Okay.
I've run D&D. D&D. I've run Deadlands, the original version, Shadowrun, Cyberpunk.
Oh, I love those. I played both those.
A couple of the different Warhammer 40k RPGs, Vampire the Masquerade.
Yep.
First edition, Dark Ages. So we've group I had's changed quite a bit over the years. I actually got into it. I was reading one of the Lone Wolf books by John Denver, kind of like the old D&D Choose Your Own Adventure books.
Right.
I was reading it on the school bus on the way home, and the guy sitting next to me saw what I was reading and said, "Hey, if you like that, you might want to try D&D." So I went over to his house that weekend and was hooked.
Well. So Choose Your Own Adventures, I definitely want to talk about. We will get to the DM tips, but I'm a little bit upset with Taryn right now because she said Evelyn looks like she's in her early 20s. And Scott said it's because she stays out of the sun. I do not stay out of the sun, and Taryn said nothing, so I guess that means I absolutely look like I'm 50. So shame on you, all of you mad chatters. So back to you, like Choose Your Own Adventures. I remember that as a kid, Mike. I don't know, it just felt so thrilling. I'd read books and I was involved in all the sort of normal media stuff, but in the early 80s, reading those and choosing your own path. No, Scott, your emoji laughy does not help. No, you're already on my bad list. It was just so fun and thrilling to feel like you were choosing the direction of your story in a book. It was nothing we'd ever seen before.
Yep, and the Lone Wolf books actually had character sheets in them. So when you started, you'd actually pick skills that you could use through the book as well, and keep track of weapons and things like that you found, and it carried from book to book in the series.
Yeah, exactly. So Steve, that's probably the most backhanded comment I've ever seen. I look and feel like I'm John's age. So this has become this. I thought that would be the next week's session, the Gen Z session, but this has become all about now how old I look. But we're gonna go to Tim.
Well, John, I don't think next week no one can be this harsh because I'm not sure anyone can take it. So kid gloves will need to be worn.
Oh,
and we need timeouts and coloring books to handle it. So just be aware.
Tim throwing shade already at my participants next week. All right.
Say anything.
All right. So let me start off with the first question for all my DMs here. And this is my question. And I really want to encourage the chatters. Let us know what you would like to hear. You got lots of experience here, also varying perspectives about DMing. But mine would be how much you like to run prepared modules, pre-published materials versus homebrew content, or an amalgam, a blend of both. And I've got a very strong opinion on this, but I'm going to shut up and I'm going to put it to you first, Evelyn.
Well, I've run one pre-prepared game, and I definitely prefer writing my own stuff. And that's just me. I like creating what I have because I have a little more I feel like more connection to it, and
Yeah.
so I enjoy it more that way. But yeah, so definitely more homebrew and world building for me.
Okay, like that. Tim.
Yes. What's the question?
So you agree with her, like homebrew versus pre-prepared adventures? Do you like running old modules? You know, I know you.
I use prepared adventures and adjust as I think they should be. I will move them around in different places. I'll put them in a if they're Greyhawk, I'll put them in a non-Greyhawk world if I want. I'll put a non-Greyhawk one in Greyhawk if I want. If I have time to make my own from scratch, I will do it. Otherwise, I'll borrow or steal a map or different ideas, or I'll make small little pocket adventures that can be strung together, as they're traveling, whether I'm going to make it an outdoor, more of a sandbox feel series, or whether it's more episodic where we just notionally cover what happens between the adventures, which I feel like is probably, at least that's how it felt when I was younger, at least when we were younger. You show up and there you are outside the dungeon, so you notionally handle how you got there. It all depends on the flavor of the group, what they like, what inspires them the most. Like, for instance, if I play in my daughter's gaming, she has zero interest in gaining treasure. She doesn't care. So, but if somebody needs some help, she'll be like, that's what she's interested in. Help somebody, fight some bad guy, do something. So she's interested in the kind of the almost moral component or the moral story, humorous component as well. Because she has that one thief that likes to, instead of picking people's pockets, she'll put something nasty in people's pockets. her name's Pocket Stinkle, so figure it out.
I love that. And of course, having watched what happened when I picked one of your players' pockets, your daughter would never want to do that. But you said some but you said some really good stuff there, Tim. And this idea of the bifurcation between combat and roleplay, I hear a lot. I have a couple of my own players that prefer pure roleplay, and they don't get excited about the combat. I've had others in the community that say, if you don't have tactical combat, it's not real D&D. And to me, it's both. I think.
Yeah, I'd say neither is true.
Yeah. That's kind of how it's real D&D's both of those things. But people get pretty. Now, I'll say honestly, if I had, hold on, my alert is hidden behind my DM icon. Let me move that out. But thank you for joining us tonight.
The combat adds the element of danger, and without that element, it takes some of the excitement away.
Yes, and I would say not just in the sense of danger and the variance between roleplay and not roleplay, but this concept of the whole idea of being real in a world. We're not playing in this game, I say this so often, we're not playing bakers. I've never had a player want to roll up a character who wanted to live out in perpetuity as a farmer. Now, I think some of Anna B. Meyer's games might be tending that direction. I don't know that. I've never watched them because she doesn't stream them. But she's told me that she has players that are still level 0 after like 7 sessions. I'm not sure how that works. That's not shade. That's respect. I'm sure whatever she's doing is amazing. But normally, people want to play heroes. They want to do something heroic. They want to engage in a great story. That's what we play the game for. And so I think that's a...
Heroes and people who are, let's be real, they're insane. The adventures are insane. They're basically, most of the time, risking a lot to do some things that none of us would even consider. You see an open mouth, hey, I think there's a pack of wolves in there. Well, let's go. Let's get my lantern and my knife. Let's go on in there. Oh, it's an old abandoned mine. Let's go on in there. No, nobody ever does that. But adventurers will just go running in there. It's been abandoned for about 500 years. Sounds good.
It's because they're heroes and they're confident in those things.
And they're insane. I mean, the job is There's no backup. There's no reserves. There's no, and they're going in hopefully to get that grab at treasure. So they are either desperate or there's heroes, but they're not okay.
All right.
That's why the clerics are not in a cathedral.
Well, that's the point. No one wants to play okay.
They're not okay.
Yeah.
So
no one wants to play okay. Okay is boring. They want to play heroes.
I'm just saying that we should say that more often. They're not normal people.
All right, fair enough.
So I mean,
I don't know. Steve wants to know if Evelyn's even legally old enough to drink alcohol. I'm not sure I can answer that question online. I think she is.
Yes.
And then we had some other really good questions in here. I want to mention John, though. Demon Gun said in about second grade, he found the island of the Lizard King. And that really got him going. And that's so cool to see how all of these old things which are influencing each other. Yeah, Pat, we all knew that. That's just super fun. And so let's come back now to Mike. Mike, tell me about your style as a DM when it comes to this idea of pre-prepared content versus total homebrew.
I prefer running homebrewed content. I just find it more fun and entertaining. It's nice to see the party be challenged by things I came up with, not necessarily reading what Wizards of the Coast or someone else has put out for pre-prepared content. It's also easier for me to modify encounters and stuff on the fly if I make things too easy or too difficult. It's a lot more structured in the modules and with the traps and dungeon layouts, and you can adjust on the fly just so much easier with homebrew.
So I'm going to chime in here. Thank you for each of I think your perspectives are all spot on with mine. My preference, if I had to choose, it's homebrew. But I do like pre-prepared content as a platform. And I do this all the time. Evelyn, if you look back to our first adventure, the Lord of the Rings saga, I use the Palantir content from Middle-earth role-playing, Iron Crown Enterprises stuff. But it was so modified as to be unrecognizable. But just for me, having a baseline of content that I can pull from. So even now in my Loremaster campaign, going into book 2, I'm pulling stuff from the wiki. I'm pulling stuff from Carlos Lysing, Castle Entertainment. The 9 was a really fun module he ran last year. I've got things from Necromancer Games. So last night you had Vane Roberts' Chains. It was ganked from Vane Roberts' Gibbet from Necromancer Games, Book of Inns and Taverns. Now, so I like pulling these things, but then I agree with the sentiment of each of these members tonight with me on stream, because I sometimes feel constrained. If I feel like I have to follow a linear path that was in a published piece of content, I feel chained to it. I get concerned. I'm not following the right path. Maybe I made a mistake. Did I connect these things? And when it's all my content, or when I've really ranged off the path, I feel that sense of freedom. And I think that is probably true for most DMs. Let me go back to the panel here. Any other thoughts on that question?
I don't sweat if I deviate, or if they deviate, or if I forgot and make a mistake, because I'm the only one who knows. It's like making a mistake. If you're doing a play, you're on stage, you say something wrong. There's only a couple people that know, and the audience doesn't, so you're good.
Yeah, true. Mike, Evelyn?
I agree with you, John. I will pull from published modules. I've got a fair number on my shelf. I'll mix that in, mix the monsters, mix the items. Some of the NPCs jump out at you. You mix that in with your own stuff, and you're not creating quite as much as you have to normally.
Yeah, I think that's well said, because look, there is so much to create as a world builder. Evelyn and I are both building worlds right now. She's going to be showing hers again a little bit next week, and it's fantastic. But Drive Through RPG, library list of adventures is embarrassing. No, John, look, there's no shame in that. That's really fun. But I'm telling you, the liberty of knowing you can go off script and do what you want. And as Tim said, no one knows if you're off script. That is part of what's intimidated me about Greyhawk. because I'm tied in to Greyhawk Online and Cannon Fire and Jay, Lord Gazumba, and this whole community. And I'm always thinking like, oh my gosh, am I consistent with canon? Is this making sense? And I still do my own thing. Like I slaughtered half the town of Hamlet. Rolastra, I'm making quite unique, but it is still something I always have in the back of my head. Is it consistent with the canon? All right, so I know we have several questions, Evelyn. Go ahead and go to whatever one you would like to.
I have a couple, actually. They're both from Pat 66. The first one he had was kind of up when we were first starting. But which comes first, players or game prep?
Players or game prep?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
For a campaign, do you pick your players first, or are you prepping the story before you pick the players?
All right. What do you guys think?
I would say for me, I would have the general idea of what the story would be, but I think a lot would be influenced by the players that I would have playing with me. Basic arc, like the overall story arc, probably. Building upon the type of players they are, what they're looking for in the game, and also the backstories for their characters, and establishing, how those things can play into the bigger story, and adding the shorter, the smaller arcs within. So.
All right, I like that. Hey, Terry, good to see you on tonight. I know you got a soccer game remotely, and thanks for being with us. Tim, Mike, what are your thoughts on that question? Players or story first?
You said two names at the same time.
Yeah, well, it's like whoever speaks up first. That's how I do it here. It's not like Jay. Jay's much better at going, you. I throw it out to the audience, and I let that awkward silence hang.
Mike?
Well, the game I'm running currently, I had the players before I had a campaign. I was talking to a friend of mine, and one of us will DM, and the next thing I know, he goes out and posts, "Hey, Mike said he's going to DM." I'm like, well, I guess I'm DMing and need to come up with something, don't I?
I like that. Tim?
In the early days, it was kind of like your players were set. They were just your friends that you have around when you're young and have all that time. So then you kind of have the prep first because the players are already set. And then college, I just basically said, hey, I gave the idea of what I wanted to do. Everyone wanted to play. So I don't know I think it's half and half. And then lately doing the Dark Hand adventures, I said, and approached several people and said, I'm making an all Barbarian campaign. Do you want to participate? So
I like that.
I don't know. Yeah, so that's what I did.
All right, so I'm going to respond with my own thoughts on this, and I think it's really close with the panel here, but I want to take a pause. We had a post from 888, D&D player 888. Mark, thank you so much for checking in, and he's actually headed to a service right now. He lost his brother recently, and the services were today, and so he's in our thoughts. And also, Dale, who you know as Asher, his daughter, underwent surgery today, and so just keep Alana in your thoughts and prayers. This is the reality that's in all of our lives, and I think that's part of what this community is. It's not just the fun of gaming, but it's reaching out, supporting others, and so for Mark and his family, and for Dale and their family, you're in our thoughts tonight, and we're praying for you. So to this idea of the structure of the game and the pre-built content and all that, I think that's really well said. And the players versus story. My thought is, I have a story or an arc or a theme. You can fall in love with Dark Sun. I have talked about this quite a bit. Or, as a DM, you can get an idea from a movie. It's just whatever, a pre-built module. So typically, I think my stories are pre-existent to my players. However, the way the story unfolds is fully up to the players. So if I've got players that want more of a story-based, or if they want to do a lot of combat, or they're jocular and they just want to tell a story, have fun, or they're very serious, or they want to craft, or whatever it is they want to do, I can still make that work within my overarching story. And that is I think the fun as a DM, to take your story and make it meld to what your players want. And I think it's pretty consistent with what you're all saying. All right, what else? It was another one from Pat, you said, Evelyn?
Yeah, the other one from Pat66 was, have you ever created your own game system?
I have an answer there, but I'll defer. Let's go to Mike first.
I was actually working on it with the guy that got me into D&D. Then we found a game system that did pretty much what we were looking at building, and then worked on modifying it to do what we wanted it to do.
I like that. Tim?
I was laughing when you asked that question because there may have been a time in my young years where maybe I wasn't as academically focused as I should have been in school. And maybe my grades weren't where my parents wanted them to be. And so using the appropriate stick versus carrot, it was, well, you're not playing D&D until you get your grades up. And so I kind of went through D&D withdrawal. So I thought, hey, what if I had another game that wasn't D&D? So I started making a Star Wars based role-playing game on my own. And luckily I got my grades up. I mean, I didn't waste that much time on it because I did get my grades up and I was back in action pretty fast. So
well done. Evelyn?
Very effective on their part.
Yeah.
I have never made a game system. All of my writing has been built on the mechanics of existing game systems. So no, yes.
All right, fair enough. Jay said the game was called Tim is Shingling His Roof when he couldn't play. That's so fun.
Negative.
So look, I'll say yes, I have. I've done some pretty wonky creative things in the past. I was that, 9-year-old kid, 8-year-old kid in 79, 80, doing all my own fun stuff and amalgamating different systems. But I would say, to some degree, Pat, I think I'm doing that today because I don't play 5e, and I don't play 1e, and I don't play 2e, I don't play 3.5. I play a blend of systems, and I've taken rule sets from each. Now, like many of you, I've played all of these other genres. I like the space genres. I've played all of those. I've played James Bond. I've played Shadowrun. I've played Runequest. I've played, what am I forgetting here? Oh, Fallout. I play all these different sort of gaming systems, but I always come back to the traditional D&D tropes. I love the fantasy, medieval-esque genre. I've told everyone that Dark Sun is the most deviated system I love. Oh, that sounded wrong. Different than the core system of, the genre of medieval tropes. You have this desert world and post-apocalyptic arcane magics. I think that's so much fun. But I think I create a custom system based on existing rule sets, add advantage in. Go back to Dragon Magazine and let your Barbarian have these crazy abilities. Let your Cavalier improve his dex and his con with percentile rolls, just like the strength was in the original system. I just think, even going back to Tim's campaign, when I was jumping in and playing in a game for Tim, going back to all those old rule sets was so much fun for me. So I think in some way, any DM that just doesn't hold to the straight line is creating their own gaming system. All right, I see some other chat. The hero system was basically written during the author's term. Yes, that's exactly right, John. And I think that was really cool. What else have we gotten in chat? Noodling around with your own mechanics can teach you a bit. It really can, Mechaform. And I think as a DM, that's sort of how you make your custom table. Like my game, I don't try to make like anyone else's game. I don't mean that in a cocky way. It's like I say that I play the game, or I run the game I would want to play in. That's how I DM. What game would I want to play in? That's the game I try to create. So one GM I know would just start dealing random damage to them until they stopped. Until they stopped what? I must have missed something
That's
up earlier.
a question from Manda. She actually
Okay.
sent it into chat for everyone. Is how do you deal with a rules lawyer type of player?
All right. Well, so let me back up a step from that because it's a great question. Have you had a rules lawyer type of player? Any of the DMs here? Let's start with you, Mike.
Yes, she was in the game with the rules lawyer.
Okay.
Best thing I did is sometimes it's useful because they tend to get an encyclopedic knowledge of the rules. Other times, like you said, with some of the homebrew rules, like I changed in 3.5 the rules for flanking. He argued with me, and I ended up having him stand up in the middle of the room and have someone poke him in the stomach, and have someone go up behind him and poke him in the back, and have him take a step to the left and to the right to demonstrate, yeah, back arc is flanking. It's still just as hard to stop someone as if they're directly opposite.
Oh, we always have one of these moments. That is my tickle fit moment. So you basically shamed and physically abused your player to demonstrate the point. I love that. No, I'm teasing. That's phenomenal. And I think what you also said there was the encyclopedic knowledge is often part of a rules lawyer. So I want to come back to that. But let me go to Evelyn. Evelyn, what are your thoughts on that topic?
I mean, I have not run many games so far, and since the people that I've played with are kind of familiar with the rules that we tend to run with, because I primarily use what we use here on Blue Box for our main campaigns. I don't really know. I would expect that always to be if a player has a question about something, and if there's, I don't mind being challenged, but at the end of it, understanding that if I make a decision about something, I'm not doing it to be unfair. I'm doing it to keep it consistent across the board for everyone, and because I want everyone to have fun, and that's me and all of my players. So
yeah, no, that's great. Tim?
I usually, I mean, most rule lawyering is involved in melee, I think. And either I'm playing with people who don't know more than me for sure about melee or combat, and or when I play with my military friends, the rules were such that they were all like, that makes sense, whatever. And so there was never that much argument. The worst argument I ever had as far as pushback was in college. Emotions were running high. It was a culmination of something I had been building for a long time, and it was the up and coming, them trying to stop the second Invoke devastation. So, and they thought something was terribly, terribly unfair, and they were throwing a fit. And I almost was like, throw the books down and leave. And I'm like, have I ever betrayed your trust as a game master, whatever? Have I ever betrayed your trust that I'm just going to be unfair? And they're all like, no. I'm like, so just cool your jets for a second. Have a little bit of trust. And then they all kind of, skied down. They got their pulse rates a little lower. But it worked out. So the rules were bending because of the enemy they were fighting, and it had reasons. So they just didn't know it.
No, I like that. So I agree with all of you, which does not make for great theater here because we're all on the same page. But I still think the idea that the rules lawyer with the encyclopedic knowledge can be a help. And so the first thing I would say to DMs is don't be threatened. Let me take the example. Evelyn's done this a couple of times, but Thomas is probably the preeminent example on my stream on Sundays. Really deeply immersed, learning the systems, consuming all of the volume of content. And as someone who, as I said earlier, bounces between editions, I use 1E to 5E, different rule sets. I've played in every single, Mystara, I've never played in Mystara, but I played in Dragonlance, Eberron, I played in Forgotten Realms, I played in, of course, a lot of Greyhawk, Dark Sun, custom game worlds. So when you switch back and forth between all those, you might get something wrong. You might get confused. Sorry, go ahead, Evelyn.
I was gonna say, and there's also when you're looking at casters, there are so many spells. It would be impossible for, a DM, unless they've been playing forever and have sat and memorized the entirety of the spell list for every single class to know exactly the wording and the effects of every single spell. And that's why, like, it's really important that, you know, if there's a question about something, that we can, you know, look at it and talk about it and make sure that, you know, it is, you know, being handled correctly.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. And so I would say, you know, even if you wanted to memorize all of it, for every edition and for every game world and for every system, if you do that, and it's possible, but if you do that, you're consuming time that could be spent on creativity. And to me, that's not what I want to do. I don't mind having a player point out to me, hey, wait a minute, the rules say this. I also don't mind telling the player, I know the rules say that, but that's not what applies in this situation, and here's why. So, as Tim said with combat, you know, he's dealing with a lot of, you know, ex-military guys, and they take a look at a rule set, and if something just doesn't make tactical sense, he can overrule that, and they'll go, yeah, that makes sense. I've had that happen a lot at my table. Evelyn, you've seen it. I've talked with all of you here, and if it's, as a DM, something where you say, okay, I know the rules say this, but we're here to have fun and to make the game make as much sense as possible. And so I'm saying this, that should always be the DM's prerogative, but not in a petulant, I'm the DM. Let me tell you how don't contradict me. Don't challenge my authority. No one wants to play for that guy or gal, right? So your rules lawyer can be your best friend. Now, if they're out of control, if they are just, you know, constantly disrupting the game, then yeah, you got to make a different decision. Wanton damage rolls might be appropriate in that situation.
Well, and some things are even worded vaguely. Like, it's hard to you know, really make a decision about it if you don't discuss it. And that's why communication is one of the most important things at a table, period.
Right. Exactly. And yeah, no, you're right. Get a new player. That's possible. Absolutely. I mean, you want to have players that make sense to be at your table. You know, you're going to run the game the way you want to run it. And again, that's not authoritarian. That's just saying, guess what? You're not going to do a good job running a game that's not consistent with what you want to run. So as a DM, I think the culmination of the response to this question is embrace those that challenge you. Listen to them. Let them make you better. Let them sharpen you and create better content. But don't allow that to disrupt your table. Run your game the way you want to run it. And when there's a line that needs to be drawn, draw it with compassion. Draw it with a degree of honor to them. But ultimately, if that person doesn't belong at your table, then politely excuse them from the table. I hope I said that right, because I know that's a controversial topic. So,
as a DM, you're responsible for the entire world other than the players. So I count on my players playing their classes to know what their classes do, what their spells do. I have the books to go reference them, but that's something you have to, just because there's so much, you can't, it's almost impossible to know everything with the sheer number of books and everything else. So some of that, counting on the players to know their stuff and know their classes, is really useful. The only problem is the only time it gets to be a problem is when you have a player that argues rules just for the sake of arguing the rule.
Yeah. No, that's so well said, Mike. Bravo. I really like that. And John, Demon Goon, Artificers broke your brain and started you on the track of trusting your players to know the rules so you could focus on the story. That's got to me, that's got to be the way of the DM. Trying to be the one that knows every rule at the table, every spell, every system. To do that, you have to then lock in on a certain static rule set. And the game is evolving and growing, and you have different systems and sets, so it makes sense to allow your players to be the ones that understand those rules and systems, but then you can still overrule and create your own content.
John, yeah, trust is very important, even among players. And it's hard to maintain that trust when you have player characters stealing from other player characters. It's just hard to do.
You just can't let that go, can you, Tim? No, look, that's another question. I'll come to that in a second. Evelyn, anything else we need to address?
I have not seen another question.
I see lots of comments. I've played with a
Clever
player.
had one earlier.
All right, go ahead.
Clever said, I've got a player we've played with for 3 years now, but she doesn't know the game or her PC. We've even gotten as far as trying to have her play a character that would be easy for them to play. Do you have any advice on how to deal with a player who is incompetent?
I like that question. So I have some thoughts, but why don't you start off, Mike, since you asked the question? Or
Oh,
you
I
read
actually
read the question, rather.
I actually had one that was a situation we had. He didn't read his character sheet, and we ended up having fun with it. He was a very good-natured person. He was a pleasant person to be around, fun to have in the game. He made some stupid mistakes sometimes and didn't read his character sheet all the time. And one of my favorite quotes is we were playing Exalted, and he's looking at his character sheet, and out of nowhere he says, "Holy cow, I know astronomy." And we all just stop and look at him. But sometimes it can be comic relief and fun and just that a little bit of enjoyment. And he'd played for years. We kept him playing fighters and barbarians because anything more complicated and he'd get confused. But it depends on whether the player is enjoyable to have in the game, or if they're dragging the whole thing down. Because you can always help with rules, because they don't know the book. Maybe they enjoy hanging out with their friends more than they enjoy playing the game. And you always have to remember, everybody at the table is not there just to play the game. This may be their social outlet. This may be their only time they get together with friends. And it's one of the things to keep in mind with your games.
Yeah, no, I think well said. Evelyn?
I would say, since I've been on the player side of things more often than DMing so far, that one of my responsibilities that I feel as a player is to make sure that I am prepared and I know how to play my character, because I understand that the DM is putting in tons of work on the preparation for these sessions, and if I am not prepared as a player, I am not basically giving them the things for the time that they've put into it. And I think that this is an important thing, and kind of the least amount of thing that a player can do to, basically think their DM is to be prepared and ready to play when they come in and know their stuff.
Okay. All right. Tim, thoughts on that?
Yeah, the people that haven't been really that well.
Be careful, Tim. Be nice.
The people that are least prepared are oftentimes my kids. So I coach and nurse them along. We don't really play all that regularly, so it's more of a time to spend time with them than it is, to worry about the game mechanics over much. And I'll just say that I can tell when people haven't read their character sheets in detail and haven't looked at it. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, I know what the next part of that question is. So I think that's really good, and it's interesting to have Tim give the most compassionate response in the panel. Not expected, but I think, as usual, the panel's on point. The one thing I would say is grace to new players, right? So we're all trying to. So that's going to be a big topic next week with my Gen Z and D stream on Wednesday. Is I want to teach new players the game. I want to bring people in that maybe you're not comfortable initially. So Mike, you play with Manda. Manda is in your game, and I'm guessing she's probably very experienced with role play, and she's fine. I introduced my wife to the game a few years ago, and it was anathema to her. If I ever do my faith and fantasy, my wife grew up in a very strict religious household. Satanic panic was all over it. Absolutely. It was, you don't play this game. This game is evil. And so when I introduced the game to my family, that took time for her to get accustomed to. And now you see her play Cade. She's been Daisy Bell Beauregard. She's a fantastic role player, but it took time to get to that point. And even to this day, Evelyn will agree, she might not know her stats. She might not know all of her different. She goes frantically through her phone and looks for her to hit bonuses and for her skill points and whatnot. But she's done so much growth, and I've had the same thing happen with newer players. And I have a kind of a question I want to hit here in a second here before we close off on the same sort of tangent. So yes, expect your players to know their characters. Expect them to know their skills, their spells. They should know them much better than the DM. But have that grace for the new player and help them along in the process. If they need that little assistance, that's our job as a DM, to grow them in the game. All right, what else, Evelyn?
Do not currently have any other questions from chat.
All right, so just looking through the comments. When we first played in the 80s, our DM said, you go up a level if you kill your party. What? Oh my gosh, what DM says that? I've never heard that before. That's, in all my years of playing, kill the party members and you go up a level. That's interesting.
Just found one.
Okay, go ahead.
It's from Demon Gun John. Has anyone ever had to ask a disruptive player to drop out of a group? Any advice for newer DMs to identify when that might be necessary, or strategies for peacefully doing so?
I love that question. I saw that earlier. I forgot it. Sorry, John. Let's start off this time with you, Evelyn.
All right. I have not had to ask somebody to leave a group. Like I said, I've really just run one shot so far. I have not gotten to the point of running a campaign. But if I were to have to ask somebody to leave the table, it would be for anybody who is just completely disrespecting everybody at the table, being rude, making it entirely, just disruptive, or going crossing certain boundary lines that have been established within the group itself. Those are the big things that I think would.
You mean like throwing someone through a portal?
No, not necessarily. Maybe. Depends. I haven't had that happen.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah,
I don't know. It was a random question. I've never had that happen.
That's a completely anyway, but something that just kind of crosses the line that has been established from session 0, and depending to the level of the issue, it might be an initial, like, I'm going to pull you aside and talk to you about this after the game, and say, hey, this is what's not working. You need to deal with this, and then we can come back to the table. If it's bad enough and it's serious enough, then it's going to be an immediate dismissal from the table.
All right.
Flat out.
I like that. And so, Terry, by the way, no, I'm not lucky that you're not on here. I'm unlucky. I would love to have you on for this discussion, and I'll bring this back up whenever you can come on. But I'll say this. So I'll go second, and I still want Tim and Mike to be able to respond as well. John, I've never had a situation where I felt a player really crossed that line. I've not had people that were, utterly disrespectful to other players. I've not had people crossing sort of those no-go lines in game. And I think some of that has to do with the DM. If you set up your game in a certain way, if you comport yourself in a certain way, I think your players will naturally gravitate to the appropriateness of the boundaries. Now, I have never shied away from a bit of ribaldry. I think a little humor, a little fun, lighthearted. And I know we're living in a day today where that can go wrong so quickly. So as a DM, you got to be very, very careful. But the sort of fun innuendo stuff has happened in our games quite a bit, and I'm fine with it. It's Monty Python-esque in my mind. It's part of D&D, and it's. I don't think it has to be overly adjudicated, but I do think it can be a really dangerous line. I've never had. I'm really thinking back through all the years. I've never had a player leave because of another player. I've never had a player cross a line that was so bad that they had to be kicked out, but I would not be above it either. And I think Evelyn's exactly right. If someone did that, a summary PC, not player execution, is appropriate. Tim, what are your thoughts?
I've never had to ask anyone to leave. I have left the game because I was just kind of new in the game, and I'm like, well, if this, ass hat is going to stay here the whole time and make it miserable, then forget about it. My time's too precious to waste it here. I was a lot younger. I was late 20s. If I was now, I'd be like, and I would definitely be much more direct on telling them to shut the heck up and correct them, because I feel that I'm old enough to tell people what to do. So I do. And so then I might remove myself if that didn't work out. But I probably would have tried to get them to correct before I left. I think that's just age. And then I've had close people who have had to ask the DM to ask someone not to come anymore because they were in the I'm leaving if they're still coming because they're so odious. And then it was generally kind of a unanimous agreement. So that wasn't with my group.
No, that's fair. And the chat has got some really good questions I want to get to. Actually, Alexander Antiquitous has probably my favorite question of the night. I want to get to that in a second. But Mike, any thoughts on this topic?
Well, I have actually, unfortunately, had to remove a couple players, one of them being the rules lawyer. I found out over time, at one time we had a very fluid group. We were trying to get some more players, and we kept losing players and not having players come back, especially the females. Come to find out, he spent most of the session staring at their chest.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's a good reason.
I caught him doing it with my wife.
Oh, yeah.
It was my girlfriend at the time. And I ended that campaign and didn't invite him back for the next one.
Tim was hearing an ironbound.
We're not talking about this kind of chest,
he
right?
did. Yeah, that's not what he meant, Tim. I knew where Tim's head was going. Well, okay. I think Mike, that's a great example of a time to kick a player out.
It's the same thing. It's in session 0 in the game I started. One of the things I said at the very beginning is, are there topics that are 100% taboo because of situations that have happened to people that we are not going to pick up, are not going to mention at all and not have in the game? There were a couple that are brought up. If anyone goes to one of them, they have been warned. There will be no warning. They will be kicked out.
I like that. I like that a lot. That's well done.
That's part of session 0 is establishing those guidelines.
And I think that's important. And as a DM, though, then you decide. So this is a hot topic, but I talked with all the players involved, and we're all on a good place, I think, anyway. But PvP, that question came up. PvP can be part of the game. If a player turns on another player, attacks, steals from them, Tim, that is part of the game. And if any PC feels like they don't want to have the possibility of a betrayal, another PC attacking, stealing from them, whatever, they should not play at my table, because that is D&D to me. Now, crossing boundaries and lines like abuse, sexuality, the things that you mentioned there, I would know that can never be at a table. Should not be allowed at all. But the basics of the game, that you're in conflict and you're playing in sort of medieval-esque worlds which have danger in them, and they have bad actors, and they have people that are out for their own means, and you have thieves, and you have assassins, and you have people who are sort of somewhat nefarious in their intent. That's got to be part of the game. All right, so let me get back to some of these other questions. The one from Alexander that really jumped out to me was the disappointment of having your players miss something critical that would vastly impact the overall story you've designed, and gently nudge to steer them back on course, or not gently nudge to steer them back on course. I could spend an hour on this topic. My players know this, but let me go to, this time, you, Tim, first.
I only certain type of adventures kind of need that, but it was a kind of a thing I saw in some of the actual Warhammer role-playing game adventures. The way they did it was the clues existed when there's an investigative piece of it, or there's clues out there. It affects the timeline, because usually these are big conspiracies and there's a timeline involved. And so they can actually speed up the process and get way ahead of it. but there's usually some sort of thing near the end where it's like they missed everything, but there's something that is built in to kind of get them back on track. Like, oh, somebody else figured it out, and now they're looking for somebody to help them. So you build in something that will help get them back on track that fits, in the whole scenario. It's just that they wasted a ton of time.
Okay, I like
So
that.
it affects,
I like that.
So,
but
that's
is
the
it
side effect?
But is it always that, Tim, or do you ever just let them? Hey, you missed it. You missed it.
Well, I mean, a lot of adventures don't necessarily have a big thing, and if there's a canon clue of some sort, I don't care how they miss it.
Okay. Yeah. All right, Mike.
It depends on what I'm running. I've had campaigns get derailed because the party was all these hints about a cult trying to summon a demon lord, and they ignored the cult trying to summon the demon lord until the demon lord showed up in the middle of the city. That kind of happens if they missed a clue or deliberately. And this isn't bad dice rolls is one thing. I try and work around them because bad luck shouldn't cripple a campaign. I've seen games where someone can't roll above a 5 the entire night.
Yeah, we've all had those, right? Yeah, we've all had those. Before I go to Evelyn, Eat to Surf, yeah, that's exactly right. There may be times you have to replace the clue. If it's so central to the story, find another way to introduce it. But I am also fine with just having it missed. And I think that goes in line with, well, I'll save that comment. I do want to also mention here, we're going to do 2 giveaways tonight. We have 2 free passes to Virtual Greyhawk Con. And we're going to do 2 tonight, and we're going to do 2 on Sunday. It's only $5 to VGHC, but Lord Gazumba, the architect of VGHC, has so graciously given us 2 passes tonight, and so we'll give those away here in just a couple of minutes before we do a raid of Jay. Evelyn, this same topic for you. Clues. Hints.
Sorry. Yes. Back to that. So it kind of depends. Because one thing I have to consider is I know things that are hidden that my players do not know are hidden.
Do you drink?
And they will never know, whether they miss something or not. Now, if it's something that I really, really want them to have, maybe. But the world also moves forward.
Right.
And if they're not paying attention, then, the bad guys are still going to do what the bad guys do in the background. They're not going to wait for the heroes to figure out what their plots are. They're going to, because the world is a living, breathing thing, and that is a major thing. It's just, there are some things that can always come in at other times. If you haven't given them the information that's there, you can always bring it, back in at another time without them even knowing that they missed it. It just kind of depends on what it is.
No, so I think that's such a great response, and so I'll give my concluding thoughts on this, and we're going to wrap up in a second. And the chat, you guys are awesome as always tonight. Thank you so much for all of our mad chatters. Great comments, great content. Just have to find. So here's my thing: clues, hints, story arcs are just like player death. The risk reward has to be there. So I might have a great item. I might have this has happened in all my games. A couple Evelyn knows about, a couple she doesn't, that if I drop the hints and I give what I think are more than reasonable sorts of DM hints, and the PC just misses it, the player misses it, then they don't get that item. They don't have that opportunity. Now, if it's central to my story arc, I might find a way to wrap it back in. But the risk is what... So the puzzle, if every puzzle is solvable, if every riddle is understandable, if every hint is found, if every foe is felled, there's no fun in the game. You're just reading pre-written rote content. All of these elements are the way a DM spices up the game. As a player, you're not hurting me. If I'm a PC and my DM drops a hint that I miss, and he doesn't offer that back to me in some other easy way, he's not hurting me. He's helping me enjoy the game. He's creating a structure that makes me feel like I'm more tied to something that's real, and I'm more engaged, and I'm more thrilled, I'm more enthralled. All right, Evelyn, I know we got some other stuff in the chat, but before we... Dingbat may come back around on them. Yeah. Oh, the question had come up about kicking out DMs, and you actually responded. You've not, but you've actually heard of groups that had to kick out a DM or leave a game because the DM was acting inappropriately outside the game. Really?
Mm-hmm. Sending messages to the players and things that are of a inappropriate nature. And
oh, you mean like
yeah.
not like let's watch the Steelers game this weekend, or
no, not things like that.
No, okay.
Yeah.
All right. I don't think we need to go any further. That comes back to the conversation I was having with Mike a moment ago. There are clearly things when you get into like, okay, we've dealt with the topics of torture at least 2 times I can think of in the last year on this game. But we're always very careful. We have sort of disclaimers, and I think we've handled it somewhat discreetly. But then when you get into like sexuality, there's been nothing in any of my games where it's forced, where it's unwanted. There might be, again, innuendo, but if that innuendo is rebuffed, that's just like life, and it always follows the gaming system. I just don't want to make situations where players are uncomfortable in a bad way. I like players being uncomfortable in a good way, meaning scared. The drama of the game, the tense mood, the concern about their character injured or dying, or the story arc. Will they be reunited with their long-lost relative? Those are the ways I want my players to feel uncomfortable, but not where the PCs, sort of the player, you know what I'm saying, feel uncomfortable in a real way. You don't want that in your game. Watching a Steelers game is utterly appropriate, Steve. Stop that. I am not, John. I'm just a friendly, fun DM. Again, I'm only hard because I want like I want my players to feel like heroic when they succeed, and I relish watching them victorious. But it's like so it was an old. I believe his name was AC Dixon.
Somebody drip water in my eye. Can't blink.
Tim, that's so unkind. That was your crit table that did that, not me.
You
wield the table. You cannot blame the creator of the weapon. You wield it.
Oh, this group is so cruel. No, I like to have fun, and I like the players to have fun. And, you don't want to just... nobody watched the Steelers. No, I've been missing on my Steelers games, Moose, because of D&D. That's so true. But nobody wants to play in a game where you have, like... When you... how old's your youngest, Tim?
10.
10. Have you ever taken your youngest to a bowling alley and had bumpers on the bowling alley?
Yes.
Yeah. And that's appropriate at a certain age. But guess what? 17-year-old wants bumpers on their bowling alley.
Are you sure? We haven't talked to this generation yet.
All right. Well, take your Gen Z bias out of it, Tim. In general, most 17-year-olds...
Just for fun. I'm just funning. I'm just funning.
I'm teasing. They don't want bumpers. Oh, the chat. Yeah, dude, you love bumpers, Terry. Of course you do. I knew it. I don't want bumpers on some 17-year-olds my game, my rule sheet. What are bumpers, Steve?
I like the gutter because I like that whole... You talk some smack before you bowl, and if it goes in the gutter, you have that turn of shame that you got to kind of cast off like it was nothing.
That's what I'm saying about the game of D&D. You have to have gutters. You have to have places. That actually has a different connotation. I don't mean gutters in the sense of like gutter-minded. I mean the danger areas in the game where the ball can go off the rails and you might just completely miss every single pin. And that makes the game more fun. That is a core tenet of how my gaming philosophy is. Mike, you've been kind of quiet for a while. Tim and I will dominate this conversation. We're both good at this. Mike, what are your thoughts on this?
Oh, someone actually said, and I agree with them, it's a matter of trust between the players and the DM.
Yes.
The players have to trust that the DM isn't going to go out of his way to try and kill the players, because any DM can kill players. It's not that hard. You have a monsters compendium full of stuff to kill players with. And that's without having them hit in the head with a piece of falling Skylab. which goes back how old I am.
Right.
No, I like that. Tim, go ahead. You were going to say something.
Oh, I was right. I felt the whole Skylab reference.
Yeah, I love that. Evelyn, I'm going to kick off the giveaways here, but any final thoughts you would like to share with us as the voice of reason here at Blue Box?
Nope.
Oh, that was such a knowing giggle. That was like, yes, my DM's an idiot.
It was like, I could reel it back in, but I'm not going to.
Exactly. All right. So in the chat, you're going to type VGHC. Don't do it yet. Hang on. Let me get the giveaway on the keyword here. Exclamation point. VGHC. All right, it's up. VGHC in the chat. And we're going to give away 2 of these $5 passes to Virtual Greyhawk Con coming up October 1st through 3rd. I will be briefly with Jay on Sunday night as well on his Gavin show talking about the 2 streams that I have. And got to put an exclamation point on there. And it's not BG, it's V, Virtual Greyhawk Con. There you go, Mechaform. You got it.
Oh, no, that's the old command from last year.
Oh, was there a command from last year?
Yes.
Oh,
yes,
crap. I didn't know we had that.
Yes.
That's all right. It'll just fire off a bunch of times.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
All right. Don't worry. The chat's going to be spammed.
I forgot that was there.
No, it's not the British Broadcasting Company, Terry. It is Virtual Greyhawk Con. Hey, Natasha, thank you. Coming in from all the way across the world. All right. We'll give them a couple of minutes. We'll do 2 of these giveaways. Final parting thoughts. Mike, I want to say thank you so much for coming on for the first time tonight. It can be a harrowing experience if you've never been on Twitch before and joined on a live stream, but I thought you did a great job tonight. Of course, I am such a huge fan of the Blue Box. You and Amanda have been great fans of the show, and I'm looking forward to meeting you in person at Blue Box Con 2022. So excited you guys are coming.
Already got the hotel booked.
Well, I'll tell you how good this guy is. So, as everybody type exclamation point VGHC. No, not CBC, not CDC, not BBC. VGHC in the chat. Not OMG, Natasha. It is VGHC. V as in Victor. That's right. ACDC. Yes, well done. Back in black. All right, so Mike, I messaged you on Instagram a few weeks ago, thinking you were your wife.
Yes.
And you were kind. And then today, I messaged you again, thinking you were Amanda, and you were kind. And then I misspelled your name. And no one pointed this out to me. I did catch this on my own, but I looked at it, I'm like, wait, no, it's DLU, not DUL. And you have still been kind. And so this man is a saint who has ignored all of my mistakes to come on tonight. Mike, thank you so much.
When I was in college, the first day of school was always fun because the teacher's going through roll, and it's always in alphabetical order, and I'm paying attention. And they're going, and it's like, okay, I should be next. The teacher stops, looks at it, and goes, and I go, here. And they jump and look around trying to figure out what's going on. And it's like, my name is that weird. So I'm used to it.
All right. Well, you're too kind. I will give him experience points. Absolutely. And then Gronk, you down with VGHC? Yeah, you know me. What, John? I can't even read that. OMG VGHC BBRP. Okay.
BlueBoxRPG. Oh my goodness. Virtual Greyhawk Con. BlueBoxRPG.
Oh my, well done, John. Thank you, Evelyn, for interpreting that for me. We old men need that assistance. I think
that's what I'm here for.
I think I'm doing
the youngins lingo.
Pretty freaking awesome with all this tech, though. Tim, final thoughts before we give our giveaways?
Oh, no, I'm just glad to be here.
All right, Duncan Joustley. The first winner of the Virtual Greyhawk Con tickets, Gronk. Gronk at K&B. Gronk always hosts us every single time. I think we're on auto host. Joins us often on stream. Was just in chat. Dropped that nice you down with VGHC, so congratulations. Gronk, just message me in our Discord, and I'll get all your information out, and we'll get you the key, so you have your free ticket to Virtual GreyhawkCon. And then secondly, Renreb! Let's go, Renreb! Super active chatter. I messaged you. I don't know if you saw it this week, my friend, but you have been so incredible. Helping our stream, constantly chatting, gift subs, all the points you give us. It's just constant support. We're so grateful to you. And so again, just message me in Discord, and we'll get that out to both you and to our friends over there at the stream. We just appreciate all of you being part of this tonight. Gronk and Renreb and our whole host of chatters here tonight. So we're going to raid Jay. And before we raid Jay, I want to talk about one last thing, just a couple of minutes. So we talked about the balance of the game and your players. How much do you let your players run, and how much do you keep behind the scenes? This concept came up today when I was talking with someone who's going to be on with us next week. And as a DM, I like to keep a lot behind the scenes for the players. Players sometimes, though, can be excluded over much from that process. And we touched on it briefly before, but I would like a final parting comment. How much do you like to give to your players, Tim? How much do you like to keep to yourself?
What do you mean give to them?
Stats, rolls, perception checks, stealth checks, managing their own hit points. All of these things.
I don't let them manage their own hit points. I've actually had it where I've had every stat in a row across the whole sheet and done it up in Excel where I could actually see every stat, so I could do rolls for their attributes in secret that they don't know about, because I don't want to say make a perception check and give away that there's something that they should be paying attention to. So
good.
Or dexterity or other things like that. So I've been I never let them do their own hit points.
All right. I like that response. I have a differing view, but I get that. Mike?
Depends on the role and the players. Manda hates my "you don't find any traps" when she makes a search to find traps. Did she roll high enough to find it or not? She doesn't know. She just didn't find anything. So where she goes from there.
Just like reality.
I love that. Exactly. And that's why I like that process. Now, there's a whole other stream we could do about DMing for your wife and the dangers and the skills necessary for that. But congratulations, Mike. You clearly have done a great job with it. Evelyn, you know my thoughts on this, but what are your thoughts?
I kind of with the games that I've run so far, I kind of split it. It depends. Like, I will allow my players to roll certain perception checks, though there are ones that I will roll for them if there's something that maybe that they should see that they don't know that they're supposed to be seeing potentially, and I don't want them to know that they've missed something. I also I tend to roll sense motive for my players, and so there are certain things that I do roll myself, but and then there's other things that I let them roll. So it just kind of depends on how much information that I want for them to have, because there are certain things that they shouldn't know because their characters wouldn't know.
Right. No, I think that's the key for me. And so I what I don't want to do is to take the dice out of the player's hands. Part of the fun of D&D is rolling dice. I talked to someone this week who has worked with a DM who takes all the dice rolling out of the player's hands. The players are basically there to do theater. They play the role, they act out. He manages all the stats, all the rolls, all the initiatives, everything behind the scenes, and just tells the players to immerse themselves in the character. That's a great style. I'm not against that, but that's not the play I want to have. I like, as a player, rolling dice. I like knowing certain stats. I like that's part of, to me, maybe that was just because of how I grew up with the game. Rolling the dice is fun. And I like, hoping for that nat 20, hoping for that great roll, that max damage roll. But what Mike and Evelyn and Tim all said is consistent with my philosophy. I mix it up. And sometimes I'll let the players roll sense motive. Sometimes I'll roll it for them. Sometimes I'll let them roll stealth. So if they're rolling stealth, if you fail stealth, sometimes you know, right? You step on a stick and it crackles loudly. Other times you don't realize that your arm passed into light through shadow and was visible. And so if a player rolls a 1 on a stealth check, they automatically know they failed. That changes how they roleplay. If you as a DM roll that same die and you see the 1, the player doesn't know if they succeeded or not, and so they play it in accordance. So I think that is, to me, the balance I like to strike as a DM. Keep the dice in my players' hands. Let them roll and have fun. But when it's important and when it can change how they might metagame or how they respond, then you as the DM, take that roll behind your screen or behind your whatever it is you're using to keep the game consistent with the story. So it's all about, right, at the end, it's all about balance. It's all about making the game fun for the players. With that said, we're going to conclude tonight. Blue Box Loremasters Arcanum Session 52, joined tonight, as always, by Evelyn. But thank you, Tim and Mike. You guys were awesome to have on. You're always welcome back. Mike, you were a delightful guest tonight, very insightful at times, and much less loquacious than Tim. So I could ask you a question, and you would get right to the point so well. Before I raid Jay, any final thoughts from you?
Hey, one thing, remember, for skills, a 1 isn't an automatic failure, a 20 isn't an automatic success. That's only in combat. So that 1 for stealth, the player might think they're doing horrible and do something different. However, if the guard with a +2 perception rolls a 2, he may not notice anyway.
That's exactly
because that's
right.
an opposed roll.
No, that's exactly right. And I think, it's a 5% shot. And if you have an expert thief, you don't want that expert thief to have a 5% chance of failing against some drunken guard. But that is, again, all of what the DM has to be able to balance. Evelyn, Tim, any final thoughts?
Can I do a quick plug for my one shot for next week?
No, you must. Not can you, you must. I'm sorry, I'm an idiot. Okay, so we'll be back on Sunday for our Rune Lords game. It's going to be really fun to see what happens with Cade and the whole crew. Markov has added so much to the channel. Thank you, Thomas, Evelyn. All of you have been great. And then Wednesday, as I said, we'll have our Gen Z&D. But in between there, I have a business trip. So I'll be out Tuesday night, but Blue Box will still be live. And what will be happening on Tuesday night, Evelyn?
So Tuesday night, we're going to be going to a different part of my world that I have been working on for a high seas adventure with pirates. They are all variant swashbucklers, and a cleric who is their deity is the pirates' deity. So yes, it's a very fun bunch of characters that are pre-generated, and it should be a grand old time.
It sounds like a fantastic time.
It will be a wonderful time, and I tell you, you'll need to be here for Evelyn, because she was initially reticent. Well, that means in pirate talk, a bit hesitant. Well, it means she did not want to walk the plank of Twitch and be on live stream, but she has crushed it every time she's been on, and I think all of the confidence she's gained being players on all of our streams, she is now ready to DM and take over all of Blue Box. I think she's actually going to take my stream away from me, but I'm fine with it. I welcome the bonny lass and all of her success, so join her next Tuesday night for, tell us your world name again?
Aether.
As she will be DMing with a great crew. I'm sorry, Tim, you look like you want to jump in. Go ahead.
That's all I was going to say.
All right, we are rating Jay. We got 10 seconds because I always kick this off late. And thank you, everyone, for staying with us tonight. Thanks for all of the new followers. I am so excited about Virtual Greyhawk Con. I've been putting the stuff up on the stream all night. As I said, I'll be on Gavin on Sunday. So our Friday night, the 1st, I've got the BBEG as the Overgord. It's a little bit of a spoiler, but trust me, you're going to want to watch that stream. And it's going to be, I'll tell you this right now, it will be, in my mind, the best amalgam of virtual tabletop and physical terrain that I have ever done, and I'll be surprised if anyone has ever done better than what's going to happen on that Friday night.
I had a bit of a preview.
I have the best ever stuff on Tailspire. I have a wicked early entrance scene, and then I have Satcher Scorn, and what's going to be physically on this table with Mike Disney's Overgord. It is going to be glorious that Friday night. I'm overhyping it now. It's going to be a letdown. But anyway, I'm super excited.
I've seen it. I've seen it. I know it's true.
You haven't even seen my Tales. You just all seen like Bill's stuff. Oh my gosh,
Bills.
Oh, he is so amazing. And then that Sunday, I'm running one of Carlos' modules. And so Castle Entertainment will be featured on that Sunday stream. Many others here on the chat will be with us. So here we go. Rating J. I want to say thank you again. Love to everybody. Make sure you tune in Sunday. Make sure you mark your calendar for Evelyn, her second ever live DM. And whoop, whoop, we just rated. All right, done.
Yeah.